Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shaped them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Hi, Jayme. Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. You are somebody that I absolutely am happy to have here on the podcast. You're an incredible human being, and our last conversation left a lasting impression on me. You're such a true person, and I want to welcome you warmly on 60 Minutes with a Woman, and I want to thank you for being here and share your story.
Girl, I am so excited to be here. And the fact that you want me to be here to be able to speak in front of your audience is just, I'm very grateful. So thank you for having me.
Let me introduce you a little bit. You are an executive wellness coach, and you are also an NLP practitioner. Your work lies in human behavior and understanding people on a deeper level. You work with higher achievers that have succeeded in their careers and are now looking for the same level of fulfillment in their personal life. And your focus is on time allocation and helping people align their actions with their goals. And I love your approach on coaching because it really mixes both of two important topics in people's life. It's success and personal happiness. Let's get to know the woman behind the title. So tell us a little more about you. Tell us more about your personal life. Where did you grow up and how your environment shaped your outlook on life?
Yeah, so I will kind of breeze through this quickly, but obviously any questions you want to throw in there, feel free, because I sometimes get used to sharing this story. So it's like, whoa, how did you breeze past that? So I grew up in a really small town in Ohio. Like it was so small, like we didn't even have a stoplight and had like bring your tractor to school day. And just even from a very young age, like anger and alcohol essentially raised me. Parents got divorced at a young age. I started experiencing death at a young age. And so I lost people to cancer, suicide, murder, overdose, car accidents, you name it, it all happened. By the time I was in 8th grade, I was diagnosed as depressed. I played every sport imaginable under the sun and had a job by the age of 11, anything to just keep me busy from, I guess, what my environment was like. And that environment actually even trained me that like, I knew chaos better than I knew calm, because when things were calm, that meant stuff was about to hit the fan. Wow. And so I preferred to just go. And so fast forwarding, even by the time of like 16, I went to hair school while I was in high school, lost 2 friends in a car accident on the same day, graduated high school, ended up entering into an abusive relationship where luckily no marriage or kids happened, but for 5.5 years, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, drugs, alcohol, cheating, all of that, you name it. I attempted to end my life on multiple occasions. I was raped at the age of 26. At the age of 25, I experienced a massive burnout. I promise, guys, we're going to bring this back up because there's a lot of joy in this story too. But at the age of 25, I experienced a massive burnout because I had my license in massage therapy and was doing massage therapy at a salon where I was also doing hair. I was doing hair on dead people. I was a facilitator for grieving kids due to death of a loved one. I was a Zumba instructor. I did network marketing. I was working for a chiropractor doing physical therapy and massage therapy, waitressing on the side, started coaching special needs, was doing all the things, and then was in the gym 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, had eating disorders, and then also just issues with drugs and alcohol. And then with all of this combined, and then being in the gym 7 days a week to just try to keep my sanity, my body finally shut down on me. And so I got put on bed rest for an entire week with a massive kidney infection. And that was one of my many come to Jesus moments, like, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. So although it was a very young age, I'm very grateful that it happened because it made me realize like I am working my butt off and I'm not receiving the love that I thought I was supposed to, or I'm working really, really hard. And even when I was achieving these things that I was achieving, it didn't feel as good as what I thought it was going to. I even shifted gears and I sold life insurance and took top 20% in my first 2 years doing it. Then I went corporate and was one of 8 for a Fortune 100 company. And I was just doing all of these things and like nothing was feeling good. I would run away and I would move to all these different locations and I was still stuck with me and never was genuinely feeling happy. And so kind of with all of these moving parts and this very diverse form of adversity personally and professionally, and also for my love with like fitness and being in the gym, I kind of reached this point where like motivational quotes and personal development became an addiction and was like one of my drugs of choice. And it was in that moment that I started to realize that our brain kind of functions just like it would a muscle in the gym. And if we want things to change, like we have to train our brain just like we would our bodies. And so that was kind of when life started shifting for me. And then I ended up taking this leap of faith and entered a journey of getting certified in as a life coach and in neurolinguistic programming and kind of just hit the ground running from there. So
Wow. This is
whole lot to start with.
it's very humbling to listen to your story. First of all, because it brings us back to understanding how hard, everybody has it. And some have it and even harder than others. It's humbling in a sense also where you didn't give up. And although it was a race to try to maybe escape, your current situation, you fell and then you stood back each time, and then you gave yourself another shot and you gave yourself another chance. And then you took it as a learning lesson, and then you kept on going, and then you reconverted, and then it's incredible. But in a sense of human power and your spirits is just beyond understanding, really. It's thank you for being so honest and sharing so much about your personal life. And it's funny because in our last conversation, the first thing that transpired from you was, oh, she's very assertive and comfortable in her own skin. And I wondered if you always been like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I never ever felt confident because even just size wise, even growing up, like parents drinking Slim Fast and doing all this stuff and, needing to be super tiny. And that was just never naturally my build anyways. I always had like a thicker athletic build. So from that, I wasn't ever confident. Like I was nicknamed Thunder Thighs by the time I was in 8th grade by like guys, or like, cause my mom's like 6 foot tall. All the boys in my class were afraid of her and they called her the Terminator. And then I was like the Terminator 2 or like Amazon. So there was like a lot of really mean things that were said from a confidence
Kids are
standpoint
so cruel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's like, even in that, like with just being raised into totally different dynamics with my parents being apart, plus all of this form of grief that I was experiencing and just like chaos, and then trying to like naturally come into my body, I never was really happy with the person that I saw in the mirror. And I actually just spoke in Vegas a couple months ago and I opened up with a story. I'm like, I'll never forget. And this was probably like 22, 23. And I was in a really, really, really low place. And I remember like I didn't want to get out of bed. And I was like scrolling and I saw this thing about, there was like a blog or something about how you should go into the mirror and say, I love you. And I was like, whatever, that seems really cheesy, but we'll give it a shot. And so I walked into the bathroom and I like am staring in the mirror and I was like, Jayme, and I was like gagging. Like I couldn't even fake saying those words to myself in the mirror. Like, guys, you would have thought it was a freaking movie like this, but this was real life. And then I was like, okay, I was like trying to pump myself up and I was like, Jayme, and then I'd walk back out. And then I like started crying because I was like, how pathetic are you that you can't even say these words to yourself? And so I walked back in and now I have like, my face is just like, cause I'm ugly crying, like snot coming out of my nose. And I was like, how could you say I love you to that face? And then like what felt like 10 minutes is I finally hyped myself up just to be like, Jayme, I love you. And it was like, I couldn't even barely say it then, but I like practiced doing that. And so I very much had to go through this journey of learning to love myself inside and out. To truly like represent this confidence that everybody else actually saw. I just naturally have always had a lot of energy and I always wanted other people to feel happy because inside I never did, but I had to start making like that work from the inside out so I could like genuinely project joy and confidence and happiness, because it was all just this facade, and I would get home at the end of the day just exhausted.
So you were this natural giver. You were this person who really wanted people around you to be happy, but yet you were not ready to accept you love for you
1,000%.
and love yourself. This is unbelievable. Is there a reason? Do you recall something that, beside the fact that obviously you are not feeling good because of the people's outlook on maybe what you thought was you? Um, is there a reason why you could not, kind of, you were in a survival mode like that?
Oh, I mean, my entire environment was a survival mode growing up, but even getting out of that, I was still, although it was a chaotic environment, I was still fortunate to be given structure in my life. Like, I was forced to
Yes.
go to church and all of this. So there was like this legalistic way of living where it was like, you have to do this, or shame on you, you shouldn't do that. So shame was an emotion I wore really, really heavily. And so within that, it was like, well, in order for people to love me, I have to go do this. In order for people to respect me, I have to go accomplish this. In
I
order to be
see.
successful, I have to have X amount of money in my bank account, and I have to be able to please people by doing this. So for me, everything was so transactional, and like my duty felt like it was, I had to perform in order to receive love. Then you tie that with the fact that, like, so desperately I was just wanting this love, but I knew how much it hurt to not have it. And so I was really working hard to make sure nobody else felt the way that I did.
It's funny because a lot of people in your situation will self-sabotage themselves and just, reject everybody around because they would be the problem, and your survival mode is usually to be alone just because people are perceived as a threat. And you are this person who still wanted to be loved, who still wanted to love people, and you still believed in giving and eventually receiving, although you were not even able to give it to yourself. It really says a lot about you.
I do want to catch something, if you don't mind, because
Absolutely.
this is the coach in me coming out. One thing that I and it's nothing you said, so please don't take that intention, but like, I don't like how society has thrown around this term of self-sabotage, because like, I'm so thankful for that version of me, because she did what she had to do to protect me. She didn't know better. And so I think sometimes, not all the time, but I think sometimes when we hear that phrase self-sabotage, it's this level of shame that we are destroying ourselves, when in reality, our body sees that as protecting ourselves.
I absolutely understand this definition of self sabotage that you have. Honestly, I still believe it exists, just because I have to say, I'm the self sabotage who maybe did certain things in her life to survive. But at the same time, it was a very lonely world and I wasn't willing to receive or give.
Mhm.
So the self sabotage was, I wanted it, but I was.
But it was safer to not have it.
Yes, this is also why I brought that up. I know that a lot of people tend to sometimes, and it's maybe because, I grew up without siblings, so being alone is something that I understand as being safe, because when I was alone, as a kid I had my toys, I had my freedom, I had everything, but when I was interacting with people, this is when I was getting hurt.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I had a similar conversation with another amazing guest, and she talked about the victim mindset. And she said, I don't want to be perceived as a victim. I don't want to be, stuck in this victim mindset as being somebody that you have to pity, because this is what got me where I am today. Exactly the same that you just mentioned. So I think there is exactly two ways of looking at it, and it doesn't have to define you. It just has to explain indeed how you made it to survive. And it's different for everybody. The way, I mean, your actions are different for everybody. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what it all boils down to is, no matter what, is that how, again, like from it's this secondary thought that comes after saying you're self-sabotaging or you're playing victim. It's, if you're able to acknowledge it, my question and my challenge for you is, what are you doing with that information now that you have it? Are you going to let that information destroy you? Right? If you see it as self-sabotage, okay, well, why are you letting yourself sabotage, and what is it that you need in this moment, and how can you achieve it? And then
Yes.
that's how you can crawl out of that victim mentality. But I think still, at the end of the day, it's what you're going to do with the information once you acknowledge it. Like, when so many people are like, this is just the way that I am, I'm like, that is a terrible way to think.
Yes, I
because
agree.
literally you can change if you want to do something and you want it bad enough, right? So I think no matter what it is that you want to call it, my biggest thing is, what are you going to do with that information once you have it?
Yes. And once you assimilate it as well, because some people don't even know this is happening to them.
Hmm?
And for any woman out there who's looking to sometimes question herself but is not sure what to do, listening to your story is and this is what 60 minutes was a woman is very inspiring. And right now, just the strength that you have on saying, hey, you cannot sit on your laurels right there and pretend that this is not happening. Like, what are you going to do with this information? I can feel you being there and pulling people out of the the hole and saying, no way, you're not alone, and I'm here to call you out. It's incredible. It's You're really breathing and leaving this coaching practice that you have. It's true. um I wanted to talk also about, what you mentioned about you having a physical breakdown, because it wasn't even a mental one only. It was you going so fast and going so far and pushing your body so much that you end up too late almost discovering that you had a kidney infection. So what is how can you tell us more about that little phase? Like, what were you trying to achieve, and when did you realize that your personal health was as important as your achievements?
So, I mean, at the time, I still didn't realize it, right? Because at that point, I was only 25, so I was still young. That's why I'm fortunate it happened as young as what it was. But I was destroying my body on all cylinders, right? Like, I'm binge eating on food, and then I'm depriving my body of food, and then I'm killing myself in the gym, whether I wanted to or not. And then I'm literally carrying all this stress, and I'm barely sleeping, and then I'm drinking my problems away and all this type of stuff. So, like, I was
I see.
sprinting in place, getting nowhere fast, and like thinking, because it was, and this is a lot of what I work with people on, it's the I'll be happy when syndrome, right? Where it's like you are imagining this version of you where when you finally get there, everything is sunshine and rainbows, and you're feeling this perfect love, joy, and happiness 100% of the time, never to have problems ever again. It's like, once I do this, then I'll be able to breathe. Once I have this money, then I'll be able to accomplish XYZ, and I'll have this, and then there'll be joy in my life. And it's like, so when you're constantly chasing something, like, I used to, one of the identities I would say that I worked with was the workaholic, where work was their drug of choice. Like, they chase after this accolade or this bonus or this accomplishment. And then, like, the high only lasted for a little bit. And then they're like, ooh, okay, but this doesn't feel as good as what I thought it was. So I'm going to chase after the next thing. And so that was very much what I was doing, is that I was just living in the future of this fantasy world of when. And so, I think similar to anybody else, of if it's like you have a heart attack, if COVID, whatever it is, when literally the number one thing is on the line, AKA your health, like, because I was working for myself. And so the fact that I literally got put on bed rest for a week, like, I wasn't making money. I did hair and massage therapy. So if
Yes.
I wasn't performing those services at the time, I wasn't going to get paid. So now I'm freaking out, because I'm like, how am I going to get money? What am I going to do? If this is happening to me at 25, what's going to happen by the time I'm 45 or 65? Like, this is not a smart way to live. And there has to be a better way. And so that was where it was like, okay, you can keep doing what you're doing, or you can make some changes. And so I shifted my efforts and took it into truly getting to know myself, training my own brain, making healthier habits. So I was then going out and being healthier for other people.
I love that. I love also the fact that you did not condemn completely the fact that you are a hardworking person, but at the same time, you just understood how stepping back sometimes and just thinking about your personal health, or just understanding that hitting goals is not what life is all about. Yet you still can be successful, right? And still do what you love. And you understood that at a very young age. I know this
Oh, at
this
the
was
time I didn't. At the time I did
you
not.
know it came
Oh,
later.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. That was just enough of a freak out moment to realize something had to change, but it wasn't an overnight change at all.
Well, tell us more about it. How did that convert into the person you are today?
I mean, I just think it's similar to what you said. Like, we can't make it through life without adversity. It's always going to be there. Just like you can't live a life without ever experiencing a thunderstorm, like with our actual weather. So our life is the same way, right? And so there was many ups and downs, and I had to, one, there obviously from a young age, I was maturing, right? I was figuring out who I was and what I actually wanted. I was figuring out what worked and what didn't work. And I got punched in the mouth a lot of times by life of just trying to go after the wrong things. And when I kept doing that, like, then I just had to keep working at it. So like, I think if anything, even in that very like statement alone, the world that we live in and everything we see on social media, you think that people have these overnight successes, and it's not. And you see the highlight reels, and more times than not, if people are having to post those highlight reels, it's because they're trying to justify for themselves ways that they're happy when they're actually not. Like, none of us have it all together. And again, because I love quotes, one of my favorite quotes that I heard during COVID actually is that anyone and everyone at any given point in time is either going into a storm, in a storm, or coming out of a storm. So maybe in this season, cool, it's like, oh my gosh, Jayme, like, you're crushing it. You just seem so awesome. And I would just like love to have your way of thinking. If you would have talked to me even just 6 months ago, there was a month I had where, like, don't get me wrong, I've trained my muscle enough to still choose joy and to work through the hard stuff, but it was not a fun time. And there was a new layer to myself that I had to work through to be able to show up and put the work in for myself to go be the best version to coach other people. So like, it's a journey. Like I don't even think I can answer that for you, because I feel like, to me, it would be a really, really vague answer of this thing of life that I'm still figuring out, you know?
No, it's absolutely the answer that I was looking for. I had the impression that at 25 you really, because once again you went through so much, and then at the time it was just a wake up call, and I felt that this is the moment where it really hit you that you needed to make change. But just the fact that you answered that it didn't happen overnight, and it was still a process, and you still failed and you still learned, this is more realistic. That this is a kind of answer people are really looking for. We talked, you and I, just before this podcast, and we mentioned how, and we're gonna get to this part as well because you wrote a book, and I'm excited of talking to talk about this. But yeah, we mentioned how you maybe were in a certain time in your life where it wasn't maybe the best, but you still were able to convert that into a beautiful legacy. And this is all about, and this is all about conversion of energy. Once again, in manifestation, like you mentioned, you want something in your life, it doesn't mean that it's going to appear. It just means that you're walking toward the right direction, the one that you chose to walk toward to. And it's like you make me always very emotional with our conversation. I'm serious. It's unbelievable. You mentioned 2 times COVID. It sounds like this was a difficult time for you, or maybe a time that where something pivoted in you. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh no, I was thriving in COVID.
You were thriving. Okay.
Yeah, for me,
so that was a good
like,
thing.
Oh, not necessarily. It was like, well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a good thing. I think, don't get me wrong when I say this, right? Because keyboard warrior sometime. COVID brought a lot of unfortunate things, but there was so much restoration that happened because it put people back to reality of what was most important. That was when a lot of my coaching, like, really, really like enhanced, was because, like, for me, I've never been married. I don't have kids. I have mastered loneliness, right? They say if you have put over 10,000 hours in anything, you're an expert. I can tell you how many times I've had to sit in darkness by myself, again, wanting to end my life on multiple occasions of having to work through hard stuff. So when everybody was struggling with like loneliness and like sorrow because of that, I was like, dude, this is a normal day of the week for me. Like nothing in my life changed because of COVID, because I was already living alone and doing all of these things, running my business by myself and going to the gym and the grocery store. That was pretty much it. So for me, it was just, even with a lot of people, and it's something that truly has shifted the trajectory of our world, which is why I bring it up so much, because so many people either are still in fight or flight mode from it, or they're still like freezing because of it. So it's more of, I guess, the dynamic around me of what I'm seeing. Because like I said, I in a lot of ways, I had already worked through that.
So what did you see in people during COVID? I love it because you mentioned that I thought it was about you, and now you're telling me that it's about your clients. What happened during COVID?
Yeah, so that was because a lot of these high achievers that I was coaching, they couldn't use work as their drug of choice anymore. because they were forced to sit at home and be like, who the F am I and who are these people that I cohabitate with? They didn't know how to function without having work as their distraction or as their identity to feel successful and confident.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, this is where we get to talk about it. Like, I get to help you sit in the trenches and like truly face the person in the mirror, similar to what I had to do way back in my 20s, you know? And so it was like, it was a beautiful storm for me to get the opportunity to help the very people that I help.
So high achievers found themselves in their home, not being able to work the way they like to do because this is what occupies most of their days. And now they're sitting with themselves, not like you mentioned, recognizing, people that surround them and maybe not understanding what happiness really means for them. How did you tackle that first conversation with them of saying, all right, we're going to sit together and find out what really makes you happy now?
Because that wasn't really the starting point. I was catching a lot of people in some really, really low moments that just needed something. They didn't know what it was, but they needed something. And so it just, to me, it made the conversation easier. Um, Again, another quote: you can run, but you can't hide, right? Anytime you watch a horror film, you're like, how is it that the killer is just walking and this chick is sprinting through the woods, and then all of a sudden her ankle does the pow pow over a branch, and then boom, she on, right? And so it's like, it's going to catch up with you eventually. And that was just a very universal way that it caught up with a lot of people. But realistically, that's why still today, it wasn't from COVID. That's why today I get to help people. It's like, if you're at a space of burnout, cool, let's get to work. But like, my goal is that we're not going to reach that point. Like, let's figure out what's working and what's not, and let's truly get to the next level. But that's going to require you to slow down first. I did a discovery call probably about 8 months ago at this point now. A gentleman, because I work with men and women, 77 years old. And, we're on the call. He's telling me about his life since he was like 19, was in the auto industry, took top 4% in sales his entire career, managed over 600 employees, married, 5 kids. All of them are raised, married, have kids, debt free. He owns multiple homes. And so I'm like, okay, sir, why are we here? And he's like, well, retired at this point, by the way. And he's like, well, my wife thinks I'm a lot. I think I'm a lot. And I just kind of don't know why I'm here. And I was like, okay. I'm like, you're a few years, into your retirement. Is it just because the honeymoon phase wore off, from retirement? And he's like, the easy answer would be yes. But if I was being honest, he goes, I've felt this way my whole life.
Oh, wow.
I just happened to be really good at making money, and it was better than ending up in jail for drinking and doing drugs. So on paper, he had the entire American dream. And now at 77 years old, still having this longing in his heart from the whole time. So that is, to me, what...
That is intense.
I felt so sad for him, but it was like, I was so grateful for that to be able to share in moments like this. Like, yeah, right now you're crushing it. You have the energy, you're checking off all the boxes, and you're building and you're growing your career. But how much of that are you actually enjoying? I can't tell you how many client calls I sit on. And I was like, all right, what was the highlight of your week last week? And they're like, wait, what day is today? I don't even remember what I did last week. I'm like, that sucks. Like, let's start there. Because again, living in the future, living for when, rather than getting to truly live in the moment.
And you also integrate NLP, right, in your practice. What does that encompasses?
Yeah. So for me, I don't take it into the woo-woo way that you very much can. Mine is more of like the tactical side of it. And that's even how, like, if somebody asks me what NLP, the way I describe it, it's this tactical way to rewire the brain. So it's like, hey, let's get clarity on your goals. Let's actually kind of find those primary limiting beliefs that are rooted in thought processes and emotions that are attached to those belief systems that are keeping you kind of...
Wait. So let's get back to what you said. You rewire the brain to come out of those limited beliefs. Is that what you said?
Yep. Limiting beliefs and thought patterns.
Okay, so limiting beliefs are in your brain. This is something that you think you can do, and you're basically able to rewire and reprogram the brain.
It isn't even just necessarily what you can't do.
Okay.
A limiting belief is exactly that. It's just limited. Like a lot of people assume that it has to be something that's tied to a trauma, but it doesn't mean that's the case, right? For instance,
Okay.
a limiting belief, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Right. I have a 13-year-old dog and I just taught him a new trick or got him to lay down or shake, whatever. Like, and he's a 13-year-old dog. Okay. That debunked this belief system that was limited to thinking, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Like there's some of these belief systems and these patterns that were just instilled in us
I
that we're
see.
anchored to from a very young age. I share this all the time and I feel like I repeat it a lot, but many people, this may be the first time they're hearing it. They say on average, we think up to 60,000 thoughts per day. 80% of them are negative, 80 to 90% of them are negative and carry over into the next day. Now, mind you, with your conscious mind, you are only capable of consciously being aware of 2 to 3% of those thoughts, right? How many times
Yes.
are you thinking about grabbing the coffee mug out of the cupboard, or like, how is it that I have to squeeze my muscles to be able to put my hand around my toothbrush, and do I have to squeeze? No, you just go and you do it, because a lot of these thoughts are just subconsciously playing back behind that. And so what it is that I also help do is like, let's start to be able to like slow down and identify and bring some of these thoughts to surface that you're not even fully aware are happening. Because that's where I notice with my high performers too, is that they've hit a plateau, right? Like they've had the work ethic, they are happy. Like that's the other thing too, is it's not that I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to fix people. People are like, hey, like my life is good, but I just feel like it could be better, or I feel like something's missing, or I just really want to get to the next level, but I don't know what that looks like or what that even means. Like, okay, like let's actually sit and like identify the thoughts and like what are maybe some of the belief systems or the habits or just the thoughts that you're thinking that are keeping you at this plateau. And then that's how we're able to break through that.
So, how long usually does and I know it's an ongoing journey, obviously, but how long does it take, your program takes to start, seeing already positive effects, or at least, positive changes in their lives?
So I'm going to answer that two ways. The first one, I won't work with anybody for less than 12 weeks because I don't want to just be a motivational hype session for somebody. You can't put braces on your teeth for 20 or for a day and expect your teeth to stay straight, right? Like you have to leave them on. You have to allow your body to acclimate to that. And if we're talking about belief systems that have been in place since you were 9, right? Like same thing as if somebody is wanting to lose 50 pounds, you didn't gain 50 pounds overnight. You can't lose it in a night, right? Like those thought patterns, to take the time to identify on top of the fact of being a mom, a wife, a friend, a sister, an employee, a boss, whatever. Like there's so many different roles that you're playing that this isn't typically where you're putting all your time and energy into. And so for that reason in itself, to me, it's a disservice to just be a hype session one time to work with somebody. So the minimum is 12 weeks. But I mean, I've literally, even within one session, have had people that are like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how I never clicked these 2 points together. And like, this feels good. And it makes so much sense. Other times it's like, hey, like, I feel like things are doing better, but like, I mean, already like, I don't know if it's working, is it not? Because there's maybe some bad things that happen in between there. And so sometimes like between 4 to 6 weeks, I can be like, hey, let's go back and like look at that first session and like be able to like see the changes that are happening.
I love when you have this aha moment, because once again, it takes sometimes very little to make it happen, but at the same time, it's just the motivation to get there and get started that sometimes is preventing you to just, get this moment where you free yourself from what you thought you were stuck in. So it's kind of incredible. And also, you're a public speaker, right? So people can reach out to you or listen to your public speaking even before to get a one-on-one session with you. And if they want this motivational time, or just get to know if this is something they can work on with you, this is what I love also about you. You put yourself out there. and you build a network and you build a community. And this is also the reason why I really wanted you to have on this to have you on this podcast, because we share the same mindset on this. It's just building this community where we all get to talk together about real stuff, and just also connect people together who didn't know they need, they could meet if now it wasn't by the intervention, your intervention. So tell us a little more about how involved you are with public speaking, where you are in the country, and where can people connect with you.
Yeah. So one other comment that I'll kind of mention on that too, like regarding the speaking, like, absolutely. I know I got a lot of energy. I know that I can motivate people. Like this morning, even at the gym, the one girl was like, sometimes when I don't feel like being here at 5:30 in the morning, she's like, I see that Jayme's already signed up and I already know. I hear her in my voice or in my head going, let's go. And so she's already like super stoked to come. So I know that there is still power in that like hype, but another fun fact for you, and I always say this at pretty much every time I speak, is that on average in an hour-long presentation that you're consuming, you're only likely to even retain 30% of that information. And if you don't act upon that information within 24 to 48 hours, it's gone. And so that's where it's like, yes, this motivation could encourage you to go do something, but unless you genuinely do something with it, it's not going to happen. Like another thing I say all the time, we don't live in a world with an information problem. We have an implementation problem. You can Google anything in a second. It's just, are you going to do something with that information? So, but yeah, speaking wise, like I personally, I live in Austin, Texas, but I've spoken in Ohio. I've spoken in Connecticut. I was just in Vegas speaking. I work with people. All of my one-on-one clients are virtual. I refuse to actually work with people in person, and there's a method to my madness there. But yeah, I do like corporate workshops, or like people will bring me in, whether it's to talk about like goal setting, boundaries, slowing down to speed up, doing all that type of stuff. But yeah. So
that's amazing. So companies are in tune into what you do and they understand the need for it.
Yeah.
That's really cool, because once again, your work environment is where you spend the most time. And when your employer understand that your mental health depend on certain, coaching methods, and then you get to go there and really grab, I would say, the problem at the source. It's incredible, because sometimes, when you have, this is also true for everybody who works, unfortunately, when you have a 9 to 5 or more, and then you have your family on the side, you really don't have time to dedicate this little session to yourself. So being able to be part of it when you're at work is kind of amazing. I'm glad employers are getting it. Tell me, do you do it with a group?
Yeah, if they want me, like, yeah, I'll be speaking in front of like 30 employees in the next couple of weeks here locally. Which again, another nudge. I get what you're saying there, so I promise I'm not correcting anything. But that phrase in itself, that don't have the time, it's not that you don't have the time, it's that you won't make the time, and that's okay.
I'm getting called out all over here. I don't know if I can recover from this, but this is what I love about you.
But and that's what I mean. Like I joke, I tell people, I'm like, I'm kind of like a Sour Patch Kid. Like first I'm sour, but then I'm like, okay, give me a second, and I promise I'm going to sweeten it up, and I'm going to tell you why I said this. It's because I love you. It's tough love. But because it boils down to, and why I love that like corporations are doing this rather than like another pizza party or a let's all do a dinner thing where everybody just gets wasted. Like that's not helpful.
Thank you for saying that. No, it's true. Honestly, it's like unbelievable. I think that they all have the feeling that this is doing something good for their employee. I don't know when this trend started, but pizza and alcohol and faking that, everybody's having a good time. Why?
Well, I mean, I think it's, it still is, we live in a world with like a lot of times celebration involves food and drinking. I can't tell you how many times, and I used to be guilty of it too. So I'm not acting above any of this. It was a big struggle for me, which is why I also implement it so much for my clients, is like how people celebrate, because they're like, well, I don't know, like especially people if like they're on a weight loss journey, they're like, I can't really celebrate by having cake or pizza because my nutrition coach is telling me that I'm supposed to be doing this, or I want to be able to look a certain way in my body, so I don't want to eat this. Or then it's like, I don't know, there's just so many ways of that. But I think that like how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so, yes, I do understand that there are toxic work cultures, and I do know the demands that come from work environments, but that's why boundaries are important. And you being able to take back control of your own life, habits, thoughts, and patterns. And I don't ever actually get to say this in a corporate setting because I have to get my slides approved and everything. And this has never been a corporate language. But I like to pretty much be like, hey, do Mondays suck or do you suck? Does your job suck or do you suck? Because you can't, don't get me wrong, your boss could genuinely be a pain in the butt and be overly demanding on you. But at one point when you first started, you really, really loved your job. But then now all of a sudden, if you're choosing to end your night with binging a Netflix show and drinking alcohol and eating trash food right before you go to bed, and now you're struggling to wake up in the morning, and so you keep hitting snooze, and then you're just trying to grab a quick coffee and donut on your way to the office, and then now you're irritated with your boss. No. You were irritated with yourself and with your life even before you got to work. And so I think that that's another thing that I like to do is I want to be able to support people in feeling confident in themselves and knowing if and when maybe a position is or is not a fit for them. But it's like, how much of your life are you genuinely taking control of to be the best version of you, so you can properly give the opportunity to best show up for other people as the best version, and maybe life, work included, would look a whole lot different. And if so, because a high level thing too is like from a communication standpoint, the majority of conflict that happens is because of miscommunication.
Yes.
So if we're confident, if we're healthy because of what we're feeding our minds and our bodies, and now we know how to properly communicate, it makes things easier.
So basically what you're telling people is you need this job anyways because you want money, right? It's something that you want. You wake up every morning and this is something that you choose to do. But when it concerns you and you're failing to answer your own needs, this is just on you. It's not on the job that's providing for you.
Right. Because that's still just a job, and nobody should let a job take priority over their own well-being. Right? That's how you fund a lifestyle that you want. And so at that point, if you're like, hey, this is too demanding and taking up more times and is not aligning with my priorities, then maybe I'd be willing to sacrifice less money if that meant I have more time. And that just means I have to steward my money in this season a little differently and maybe not be able to ball out on some of the luxurious things. Like
yes.
We always have a choice. And even in this economy with all of that, and I'm again, keyboard warriors, please. Like I get it. There still is a part to this. I'm saying this as a blanket statement, but I know that this isn't in every single situation. So hear me and know that I understand all of that. But I mean, even me, like going back to transparency, as I was like first launching my coaching business 7 years ago, like I haven't owned a couch or a TV in over 7 years. Personally, it's also because I don't see the point. I don't like watching TV. It's just not fun for me. I'd rather be reading a book. I'd rather be outside, all of that. But I literally pretty much was able to pay for my gym membership and my groceries outside of my bills. I didn't go out to eat. I wasn't buying drinks to have a fun night out. I wasn't taking trips. I wasn't doing anything because I was really concerned with being able to show up and do the thing that I wanted to do. So I had to be disciplined in that. And it was because of what mattered most to me.
That's absolute discipline. Yeah.
You started this job with this end in mind of either maybe what you were going to be able to do with this money or what you thought this was going to make you feel like or what all these goals were. And it's like, okay, well, what happened along the line? What changed? A great book recommendation I always give everybody. It was the personal development book that quite literally changed the trajectory of my life. And it's The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Very rarely is it the obvious habits that are impacting your life. It's the tiny ones. Again, just because it's easy to go to, I'm going to go back to COVID, right? Like people didn't have to get up because they didn't have to go to work because everything was shut down. So now everybody's sleeping in later. And because they're not waking up as early, they don't have to drive and commute to work. Now they're staying up later. And oh my gosh, well now I'm stressed because of just what the news keeps saying. And I need a drink. I need a glass of wine. Then all of a sudden that glass of wine turned into an entire bottle. And then now all of a sudden it's 4 days a week instead of just this Friday night thing you used to do. So now 6 months later, people are sleeping in, they're feeling like crap because they're just binge watching shows and they're drinking out of control and they're wondering why they're upset and why life seems so much harder. But again, it's easier to be like, because my boss doesn't hear me. He doesn't understand what I'm saying. And he keeps throwing all of these demands at me and I just don't know what to do. And I don't know how to handle this in the world around me. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. You've officially like stopped paying attention to truly the things that you could be in control of.
It does make sense, and I understand both parties. I understand where you're coming from with this, and I understand also the feeling of feeling stuck. I honestly did a lot in my life that I'm kind of stubborn, and I am the one who, if I don't like something, I'm just gonna leave. This is really my motto. Somehow I'm like, okay, I'm not a tree. I can move.
Yeah.
This is always what I do, and I try to find happiness. But I know that sometimes you've got this squeeze to get somewhere. Yeah. So I think that there's just a middle ground between, take this piece of paper and start writing, what really matters to you, and have kind of a deadline to it. It cannot be forever, but at some point you really, like you mentioned, for example, you squeezed for things that really matter to you. And sometimes, although it doesn't make you happy, money matters to you because there is just the scholarship of your children that you have to pay, or, there is just a pension that you're thinking about, retirement plan and things like that. Or there is somebody is unfortunately sick, in your family, and it's just ongoing bills like that. And it's just, sometimes it just falls on you. So what I'm taking from this is really, although things happen in life, although you were born where you were born, in the situation you were born into, and some things you have no control of, just make sure you have this small list, and this can evolve and this can change, of the things that really matter to you and how much you're willing to dedicate to that, and then sit with yourself again and look at if it still makes sense for you, or if now, once again, things have to change. No. This is what I'm understanding from it on a softer level than you.
Girl, I was going to say, I don't know what you're doing to me today, but you are hyping me up in the best way possible. Because two things I want to say there. Again, this is because sometimes, like, I don't know, like, I feel like this has even become a trending word lately though, but I'm here to disrupt the system, because just because something's normal doesn't mean it's good. And and two things. One, I think where social media has failed us is in this mental health world and this manifestation world. People are like, I need to speak my truth. And as long as I just let go and I just do what feels right for me, everything is just going to flow so effortlessly and come to me, and I'm going to be happy all the time. That's not how this works. So in the example that you just described, and with me, like, sometimes, like, I can't believe we've made it 50 minutes into this episode and I haven't dropped this quote yet, because this one, guys, is going to be on my tombstone. Mark my words. We need water to survive, but water can also kill us. Too much of anything is going to be a problem. And as I said, anyone and everyone at any point in time is either going into a storm, or coming out of one. So right now, you having to just bite the bullet and suck it up at a job that you don't want to be in, that may be what you are required to do in this season. But what can you do to get the most and just wring out as much lessons, as much grit as you can from this, that can prepare you for where you're going to go next, until you have the courage to step in and go do that. Right? Or if, hey, things are going really, really good, but you're not allowing yourself to actually appreciate it, what can you do and what's worth it to maybe pump the brakes on and stop from fear, so you can genuinely enjoy where you're at, rather than starting anxiety to creep in as if it's not enough, right? I think the other part that's important, and something that you said, is that we will always be evolving. What I wanted 2 years ago, what I wanted a year ago, isn't what I wanted now. I shouldn't want the same thing that I wanted then. Yes, there are some of the core things that you should want, or a desire that may never leave your heart. Those are very specific ones, but I think more times than not, it's like that should be evolving. And if you know this is what you want, imagine how that version of you is living when they have those things, and start doing the things today and practice being that person who has it. It's not that you're manifesting it. It's that you're literally doing the habits, and you're taking control of your thoughts and living with the right attitude and the discipline to be that person and appreciate those things that you want in the future.
But we are really on the same page. It's all about accountability, and you've said it in a very coaching way, and I was just on the softer way, but it's
Yes.
true. It's exactly what we were saying, is just make sure you are doing what you want to do in life, and when you wake up in the morning, to find the energy of doing it. And sometimes you've got to sacrifice certain things to get where you want to be, but you don't have to feel crappy about it. Otherwise, it's time maybe to shift. And back to the story about your book, by the way, because it's right there behind you. I can see it beyond the words.
Yes.
I want to talk about this book because I think that now people have a good sense of your energy and who you are. And if they purchase the book and they read it, I want them to be able to relate to the person you are. Tell us more about first of all, how did you get even started with thinking about writing a book, and what is the book about?
Yes. So another thing,
don't call me out.
No. I'm kidding. I promise this time I'm not.
I'm kidding.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for being you. So as I mentioned, I've attempted to end my life on multiple occasions. Like quite literally, I shouldn't be here. And I am very rooted in my faith, and I am very certain that God is the only reason how I'm still here. So there's that part first and foremost. But I had written this book back in 2021, and it's just been chilling in my Google Docs since. And it was actually a friend of mine who's a publisher who wants me to speak at one of her events. She's like, I'm going to help you write a book and we'll use it as PR. I'm like, girl, no worries. I already wrote one. She goes, why have you never told me this? I'm like, I don't know. I kind of forgot about it. Why I wrote this book is because, again, never been married, don't have kids. And that is a type of darkness. And it's not about comparing who has it worse. Please hear me also too when I say that. I can only speak on my experience and what I've obviously went through. It's very easy for the single person to be forgotten because everybody has their families and other responsibilities to be taken home to. And so that adds another layer of not wanting to be a burden and not ever really getting celebrated, or again, it's more of an afterthought. And so in that, I also didn't have people that were relying on me. So there were many dark, lonely nights where I literally was like, why in the F am I here?
Oh.
Nobody's relying on me. Sure, like some people closest to me would be upset if I'm not here, but past that, like everybody has their people, so it's fine, right? And nobody's depending on me. And so for that being said, like quotes were quite literally the only thing that saved my life, to encourage myself. But then also once I started leaning in and like listening to motivational videos and like I would read a quote, like I had sticky notes just plastered all over like my bedroom, my bathroom, even like leading out through the kitchen into the garage of just like, I would stick them on my steering wheel. So when I got out to my car in the morning, I would see it. I would write messages on my mirror in a dry erase marker, anything to just try to like get me to go. And then I started sharing that with other people that I thought of. And then if I didn't make like a post or if I didn't text them, they're like, are you okay? We didn't get a quote from you today. So then there was like this deeper sense of responsibility with it. But so anyways, I wrote this because if I went through all of that type of stuff and God was able to help get me through that, and I was able to experience the joy and the happiness on the other side of it, I want other people to be able to have that type of encouragement and to experience it too. So when I wrote this book, what I wanted to do is that I didn't just want it to be like a devotional where you just get a quote every day. What I wanted to do is kind of share my perspective on the quote, because there's certain quotes that I still use today that take on a different meaning than what they did when I was in a really low spot, but it still adds value to my life. So each day, there's 123 quotes. So it's not necessarily each day, but there's a quote. And then on the right side of the page for every quote there's a way to challenge your perspective about the quote. There's a story that I shared and how that quote influenced my life. And then I always leave it with a call to action. Because again, we don't have an information problem, we have an implementation problem. And so I'm hoping that going beyond these quotes is that I'm able to give somebody the opportunity to sit with themselves and learn something new about themselves, or light a fire within themselves to go do something with that. Yes. So this book, Beyond the Words, I wrote to consolidate 123 of the most impactful quotes that literally saved my life. And I just pray that it's able to save others.
Thank you for taking the time and once again converting a maybe not so great and probably pretty dark moment of your life into a gift, because this is what you're offering us right there. It's a gift, and it's a little bit of you, and it's also a legacy where people can, just take the time to read, relate, and also convert it and understand it the best possible way for themselves. So this is how I feel that it's just talking to so many people out there. It's just, you can interpret the book in so many ways, and at the same time it comes from a very strong feeling that you can't deny. So it's really incredible, and it just got published. So it's a big thing.
2 weeks ago.
Two
Yes.
weeks ago. So it's a big thing. And we can purchase it on Amazon, right? Okay. They can purchase it on Amazon. Tell us more about your next event or what you have planned on your agenda right now so people can get in touch with you.
Yes. So right now, if you are in the Austin, Texas area, I have a few different speaking engagements that I will be doing for that. And then in addition to that, I also am the community director for a group that has over 16,000 professionals in it in the Austin, Texas area. So if you ever need anything in that, I got you covered. Also currently in the application process to hopefully be able to do a TED Talk in November. So very much looking forward to that.
Congrats.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So I have a podcast, which I haven't posted on in like 6 months now, but yeah, people can just follow. I try to post stuff to encourage people, hold people accountable. Yeah.
Amazing. There is one question that I asked you during our first conversation, and I really want to ask it again because the answer, and you know it, but the answer really blew my mind. It's 100% who you are, and at some point, I really want people to be able sometimes to also, once again, realize that the process is sometimes, as bad as it sounds, sometimes it can be good. So I'm going to go ahead. If you had to give one piece of advice or change something, right? What would you tell to your younger self?
Girl,
you remember?
I was over here sweating. I'm like, I don't know what I said. And now you're really putting me on the spot. Oh my goodness. Okay. No. Yes. I love this question. And now I remember why you said that. First of all, if I were to go back to my younger self, she was too stubborn and she wouldn't have listened anyways. So it would have been like talking to a wall. But I wouldn't tell her anything. If I really, really, truly had to, in a passing by, it would be a passing by moment. Like I didn't go this in depth because I've never actually thought about it like this. Like I would just love to have a moment, whether that version of Jayme was having a bad, good day, I don't care what it is. Just me being a stranger that passed by and just said, just trust the process. It'll all make sense. Because although I would never want to go back and have to relive the things that I went through, I am so insanely grateful because connecting the dots, looking backward, it is why I am able to do what it is that I do today. And I am so grateful for those experiences because I think that that's also how I've been able to experience so much joy is because I've also experienced so much darkness.
That's how I remembered it. That powerful, I'm telling you. Jayme, thank you so much for coming today. And once again, sitting with us and sharing your story with 60 Minutes with a Woman. You are absolutely the type of guest we want on this show because the content that you share is just beyond what we can see on TV or, all the streaming platforms out there. Podcasting, it's about sharing true stories, and you are the kind of person we want to hear. We want to listen to. Thank you so much. I hope that everybody was able to feel you. I know you have a strong personality, and I'm really hoping that this transpired properly, because you're also a genuine human being, and I'm out of compliments. So I'm just going to say goodbye now. But thank you again, Jayme. And now we'll add all your information in the description down below. Please reach out to Jayme if now you feel that this is something that you just are curious about, or if you want to transform your life completely. There you have her. She's here for you guys. Thank you so much, Jayme. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.